the Tshwane councillors, and welcome to our colleagues from the media, and also welcome to anybody that's joining us on the DA's Facebook page. It is indeed a historic day, and it's entirely fitting that I'm joined by not only the DA's mayoral candidate for Tshwane, Randall Williams, welcome Randall, but also the Gauteng North DA regional chairperson, Paul Mahlape, but more specifically, the leader of the DA, John Steenhuisen, who is going to announce our position and our response to the judgment of this morning in the Supreme Court of Appeal, and that's John Steenhuisen. John, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, and obviously greetings to ladies and gentlemen of the media that are on the call, as well as to our Tshwane councillors that have joined us. The DA obviously welcomes today's long-awaited judgment from the SCA, which has dismissed comprehensively with costs the Section 18.4 appeal, which was lodged by the Gauteng provincial government in July of this year. The appeal that the provincial government instituted essentially sought to delay the enforcement of a High Court judgment, which the DA had obtained with the Section 18.3 application handed down in favour of the party in June of this year. This judgment had instructed the immediate reinstatement of the DA administration and councillors in Tshwane pending the outcome of an appeal to the Constitutional Court on the matter. This morning's victory in court is a fantastic win for the DA. It's a fantastic win for democracy, and I think it's a tribute to those hardworking DA councillors in Tshwane who, despite months of turmoil, months of no salary, months of no council being able to sit, have kept steadfast in their responsibility to the citizens and residents of Tshwane, as well as their commitment to uphold local government transparency in the city of Tshwane. This judgment has now given the DA a green light to immediately reinstate our government in Tshwane so that we can roll up our sleeves and do what we were elected to do by the people of Tshwane, which is to serve the residents of South Africa's capital and to bring the DA difference to South Africans. Most of all, this judgment exposes that the ANC, and in particular the villain in the piece, MEC Maile, was engaged in a power grab and abused his position and the Constitution to try and effect this backdoor power grab. First of all, MEC Maile agitated the ANC councillors in the city of Tshwane to make it ungovernable by constant walkouts from the Tshwane Council, breaking the quorum and making it impossible to take decisions. It was this petty politicking that has put service delivery and the residents of Tshwane in peril and left them without a government during one of the most difficult times in South Africa's recent history, the COVID-19 crisis. After having achieved that goal, the provincial ANC government put the city back under ANC administration. The Supreme Court decision once again exposes the strategy for what it is: another abuse of the Constitution and a blatant power grab that has only sought to undermine the democratic will expressed by the voters of Tshwane. Now, this judgment is not only crucial for the residents of Tshwane municipality, but it is far wider than that. It is crucial for democracy in South Africa because it has laid bare the very desperate and extreme lengths to which the ANC will go to try and circumvent democratic processes and the Constitution, and to use their own governments and abuse the courts to cling to power in instances where they have clearly lost the trust of voters at the ballot box. The residents of Tshwane made it very, very clear in 2016 that they no longer wanted to live in an ANC-governed metro. And the Democratic Alliance has fought tooth and nail to uphold their wishes and make sure that the voices of those residents are heard. We and our team in Tshwane are now ready to get back to work, serving the residents of the city with clean, efficient, and innovative government under the DA's banner. I want to urge all residents of Tshwane and each and every South African across the country to note that these sorts of power grabs will only continue should metros and municipalities remain governed by coalition governments in which the ANC holds large shares of the vote. It is imperative that voters ensure that they give, in the upcoming local government elections, the DA an outright majority in metros and municipalities across the country, so that we can be given a clear and unquestioned mandate to bring the DA difference to the people of South Africa. Now, more than ever before, we must rally behind the DA to push through clear blue majorities to bring the change that Tshwane and South Africa so desperately needs. The events of the past few months have shown that the ANC at a provincial level cannot be trusted with ensuring good governance, nor with respecting the will of the people. This important precedent will set a very clear marker to the local government elections next year, when many more municipalities are going to fall out of ANC control, but remain under ANC-controlled provincial administrations. This judgment will assist us in ensuring that never again are ANC power grabs to be launched via the back door anywhere in South Africa. And we will continue to ensure that democracy and the rule of law will always prevail. I end where I started, in paying tribute to the hardworking men and women of the DA Tshwane caucus, who, during very difficult times, have stood by their residents, stood by their citizens, and stood by the mandate that was given to them, and have discharged their duties without fear, without favor, and with absolute distinction. I could never be prouder of a caucus in the country as I'm proud of our DA Tshwane team, and I wish them well as we get back into government and start to make the difference that Tshwane needs to get it moving forward again. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you very much, John, and thanks for the statement that you've made and the clear markers that you've laid down for not just the DA, but also the voters in Tshwane and beyond. I would ask Randall, the mayoral candidate for the DA in Tshwane, to say a couple of sentences, and then I'll give an opportunity to Mpho Mhlape, who's the DA's regional chairperson, to also say a couple of sentences. But colleagues in the media, when we give you the opportunity in a few minutes, we'd like you to use the raise hand function. And if you need any guidance in that regard, by all means, use the chat room to ask for guidance. But we presume that you've used Zoom quite often in the last 7 or 8 months, and you will be very familiar with it. So, Randall, over to you.
Thank you, Mike. I'll just say a few sentences. Hopefully we can provide more information once we get the questions from the journalists. I was quite surprised by this judgment, not in the fact that the appeal of the Gauteng provincial government was dismissed, but rather the issues that the judgment addressed. The judgment did not only say that the main judgment that was granted in the DA's favor in April should be implemented immediately, and that Section 18.3 application that we brought was correctly granted. But it also went further. It looked at the merits of the issues that were addressed in the main judgment and confirmed that those merits in the main judgment of April were addressed correctly. And what this judgment further did, it addressed important constitutional issues which came as a surprise. And it confirmed the autonomy of local government, that in fact we have 3 spheres of government. Although the 3 spheres of government are interdependent, they are in fact autonomous and independent. And that only in exceptional circumstances may a provincial or national government intervene in local government. And that was made clear. So once again, MEC Mahile was wrapped over the knuckles. And going forward, we are quite convinced that the Constitutional Court will also rule in a month or so in the same manner. So thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you very much, Randall. And then Mpho Mahlape. Mpho?
Thank you, Mike. From my side, it's just to thank the DA councillors for the hard work that they've been keeping up during a very trying and very emotional period in our political careers. And I tried to think, Mike, what would have happened had the DA councillors not continued to serve the residents of Tshwane, because the administrators did not have any systems in place during this period where residents could escalate. So big ups goes to my colleagues, and may we continue serving Tshwane.
Thank you very much, Mpho. Now, friends, colleagues from the media, I see that there's some in Kosinati from Power FM. Would you like to ask your question, not just in the chat room, Kosinati? Do you want to unmute yourself and then pose your question, please, Kosinati?
Mike, I think that Nkosinatia said that her mic is not working,
Yes.
but I think her question is when we will be reinstated. And I think that Randall could maybe give some advice on that. I imagine it will be in the purview of the speaker to determine the timing of that.
Okay, yes, indeed. And Randall, would you like to give the preliminary timing that we've got at this point in time, which may or may not be changed as discussions with other parties unfold? Randall?
Okay, basically what this judgment does, which was an appeal judgment, it confirms the judgment that was handed down in terms of our Section 18.3 application. And that application itself, which were granted in our favor, said that the main judgment must be implemented April, which was supposed to have been on the 5th of May. So today's judgment means that the April judgment is being implemented immediately, retrospectively. So it's reactively, it's backwards being re-implemented. So all councillors from this moment, the speaker, the chief whip, all the chairpersons of council are back in office from 10 a.m. this morning.
Thank you very much. And Kosinati, the speaker herself, has been physically engaged with the council staff in order to put the reports together for the first council meeting. If all goes well, there will be a meeting of the multi-party whippery at 5 o'clock. And a previous agreement with the parties when the judgment was first handed down was that there would be a council meeting within 72 hours. That would take us to roughly Friday. So that will probably be the initial discussion. It's possibly going to be moderated or modified by practicalities and logistics. But if not Friday, it's likely to be Monday. Thank you, Nkosinati. Okay, Nogukanya Mtambo, let me see if I can unmute you, Nogukanya. I'm just going to...
Hi, Mike, I've already unmuted. I was just struggling to raise my hand.
No problem. Go for it, Nogukanya.
Morning, Nogukanya Mtambo from Jacaranda FM. So there's still the question then of having to elect a new mayor for Tshwane. And as we've seen in the past months, that hasn't quite gone down in a savory manner. How then do we go forward and ensure that we don't have a collapse of the council again, as we've seen in the previous months, and that the election of a new mayor into council is done as, I guess, as seamlessly as possible?
Randall, do you want to take that one?
Yes, I can take that definitely. What is quite interesting, in the Concord case, the question was raised whether the Concord judges should agree with the mandamus. Now that question is a question for the future. What this judgment today means is that the mandamus that is contained in the April judgment is now effective. So the ANC and EFF councillors are obligated to attend council meetings and also to remain in council meetings unless they have a lawful reason not to be absent. So, or lawful reason to be absent. So all councillors will definitely be present in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Randall. Claudie Mailovich. I don't know if Claudia is gone. All right, are there any other hands? If the hand is an issue, you're welcome to indicate you want to ask a question through the chat room. Are there any more questions? I see my good friend, was it Sisa Sipo Schreiber? Is that right? Would you like to come in? Just trying to, okay. Are you able to speak? Yes, go for it.
Yes, good morning, guys. It's Sinisipo from the Record newspaper here. My question would be, as you know, the Tshwane issue, a legal issue, has been quite a lengthy one until today. I don't know how many appeals and legal battles we've been in. I just need one clarity. The one that we're actually discussing right now, is it the appeal to the April judgment by the High Court to have the councillors reinstated? Because in conjunction with that one, there was also the DA as legal application to have councillors reinstated while the legal battles are pending. So there were those two, the appeal to the High Court's judgment and also the DA's application to have the councillors reinstated while the legal battles were pending. So I just need clarity on that one so that we send quite a straight message which this judgment, because we haven't had the time to go through the judgment yet.
Randall?
I can just briefly clarify that. The main judgment was received in April in the DA's favor, and then the EFF, the provincial government, then appealed directly for direct access to the Constitutional Court and also for conditional access to the SCA. That was on the main judgment. Now, what that meant, because they appealed, that the main judgment was suspended. The DA then brought a Section 18.3 application to have the main judgment unsuspended, or rather be implemented immediately while the appeal process to the Constitutional Court is ongoing. Section 18.3 application was granted in the DA's favor, reinstating the councillors. However, the provincial government then had an automatic right of appeal to the next highest court, which from the full bench of the North Gauteng High Court was again the Supreme Court of Appeal in terms of Section 18.4. So again, the Section 18.3 judgment was suspended. So to lift the suspension, we then had to succeed in the Section 18.4. So that happened today. The appeal of the Gauteng provincial government was rejected by the Supreme Court of Appeal, and the suspension of the Section 18.3 judgment was then lifted, and that automatically meant that Section 18.3 provided that the April judgment should be implemented immediately and that suspension should also be lifted. So now the main judgment has application and is being enforced while the appeal to the Constitutional Court is still ongoing. So that's where we're at the moment.
Thank you, Randall. We'll take Rory Sang. We'll see if we can get you audio, Claudie, but I see your question in the chat room, but let's get Rory Sang first. Rory Sang.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Rory Sang.
I just want to know that since the judgment ruled for immediate reinstatement of the DA and councillors, do you perhaps know if the administrators have vacated Tshwane House yet? And since the DA has numerously said that the administrators have been poor when it comes to service delivery and taken the city back, do you feel now that the DA will have a lot more work to do when it comes to delivering these services? Thank you.
Randall?
Yeah, what basically means is today's judgment means is that the main judgment of April takes effect, and what that main judgment stated in April was the last day of the administrators was the 5th of May. So that's why I say this judgment of today takes retrospective effect. So that means that the administrators are now out of office. They are dismissed from office. And going forward, it all depends, the difficulty in restoring services depends on what we're going to find. There's for the last 6-7 months, there's been no oversight over what the administrators have been doing. We were prevented from doing oversight. The only person that they reported to was Mahile. So only Mahile knows what's going on in the city. But we suspect that we're not going to find good news. That is going to take a lot of effort from all councillors, not only the DA councillors, but of all councillors to pull together to ensure that services are delivered to the citizens of Tshwane.
Thank you, Randall. I'll have Claudie will try the sound, otherwise we'll take the chat questions, but after Claudie we'll have Sinisipho. Claudie?
Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well. Thanks, Claudie.
Oh, yay. Thank you very much. I'm very happy about that. So basically, my questions are just, and anybody can answer it. Have you been communicating with your current coalition partners, and are they all on board with Randall's candidacy, firstly? And then secondly, are you communicating with the EFF and the ANC about this specifically? And then what I also just wanted to know is what is the road forward if the Gauteng provincial government indicates that they will file an application for leave to appeal to the Constitutional Court on this matter? And then the last question is, by when do you want a mayor installed in Tshwane? What is like the deadline? Because the problem is, what if the same thing happens and you're unable to elect a mayor again? Does it then just follow the exact same route? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Claudie. Right, the discussions with the other parties have started. They've started at both at a local level and at a provincial level. So they've not concluded, but at this point, the initial indications are that we still have the coalition that came together in 2016 amongst the DA, the ACDP, the Freedom Front Plus, and COPE. We are obviously desirous of having an open cooperation with all parties as legitimately elected councillors. So there will be a constant engagement, as would be the case with good governance, with the ANC, the EFF, and the single PAC councillor as well. There's also been a line of communication opened with the ANC. To my knowledge, we have yet to engage with the EFF, but as per court, because we want to engage with all councillors, including any party, the EFF will get the phone call before the end of the day as well. So we'll see how the parties react, but so far so good. I think that what you will see is a recognition that this thing has gone on for far too long. I think, Claudie, that there is certainly from our sense a concentration of minds that this whole fiasco that was started since the program of destabilization around about this time last year, the residents of Tshwane have been done no service whatsoever in terms of the behavior of the councillors. And so that needs to come to an end. I cannot predict the outcome, but if you ask me, am I confident? The answer is yes, I'm confident. The leave to appeal to the Constitutional Court, we are getting no indication whatsoever that specifically the ANC have any appetite for such a leave to appeal. There is obviously a current case before the Constitutional Court, which has been certainly argued and judgment is awaited, that may or may not have an impact. I think given what Randall said earlier on about the content of today's judgment from the Supreme Court of Appeal, we think that the judiciary in South Africa recognizes the autonomy of local government, and we would expect the Constitutional Court judges to view these matters in the same way as the Supreme Court of Appeal has gone, and as did the Gauteng North High Court before it. So we're not anticipating any further legal hurdles before that. You're asking when do we want a mayor elected in Tshwane? At the first council meeting, which is either going to be Friday at the earliest, possibly Monday, possibly a day or two after that. That's how soon we want to get a mayor in place. I think that you'll find that there will be a cooperative attitude going forward. There isn't much time between now and the 2021 elections. I'm not anticipating the kind of disruption that we saw late last year specifically and earlier this year. Thank you. Sinisipo, is that another question? We're able to unmute you. Ask to unmute. Oops. Sorry, Sinisipo. I tried to unmute you, then I succeeded in muting you again. Let me just see if this works. There we go. Okay, over to you, Sinisipo.
Thank you so much, guys. Just a few last questions from me. If I remember correctly, the first High Court judgment on the administration and having the councillors reinstated, it did articulate that the head administrator would be left in position, I think, as a city manager, I think for a month or something like that. Please do try and clarify if I have that wrong. So my second question to that would be, are you willing to work with the administrator or the head administrator, should he be, as the court judgment, if I remember correctly, he said that he would be a city manager, something like that, for some time. Second question that I wanted to ask, what will be among of the first things that which the DA wants to tackle after being out of action for more than 6 months? What would be among one of the first things that which the DA would like to tackle into the city? Because we know there's COVID-19 list that must be published, which we have not seen yet. And we know that the 4 administrators have also left, which leaving 6. So there's that bit of a gap in terms of administration and handling things there. So I wanted to start with that also. And I think those are the 2 last questions which I have for the team. And lastly, for John, I remember quite vividly that when you guys were applying for an appeal, the DA was of a stance that it needed to highlight autonomy of municipalities and also for democracy. Just if you can give us 1 or 2 lines just explaining on the importance and the significance of this judgment to the democracy.
Okay, thank you, Sinisipo. Let's let Randall answer the first 2 questions, then I'll bring in John. Randall?
Thank you, Mike. As far as the acting city manager is concerned, yes, in the main judgment, it was mentioned there was an acting city manager who happens to be one of the administrators that was in place. We would, however, like to have a legal opinion on that because it's not clear from where we stand whether someone who's not an employee of the city of Tshwane may be appointed in an acting position. So that is something we will have to take on the legal route and see what are the possibilities of having an administrator stay in place, or whether we need to appoint an employee, someone who's currently an employee of the city, as an acting city manager. but that we should be able to do within the next few days before the council meeting, before we need to take that decision. And then as far as what's our priorities, at the moment, you don't have the delivery of normal basic services. So first thing we need to do is to stabilize the city, make sure that the delivery of basic services are taking place. And also a major challenge that the city has at the moment is that due to COVID-19, there's been a huge impact on the revenue collection. So that is something that will need our attention immediately, because without adequate revenue, it won't be possible for us to deliver basic services in a sustainable manner. So those are the two issues we will need to address immediately. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Randall. John, over to you.
Thanks very much. The importance of this particular judgment is simply this, that in the 2019 election, with the election results, there were over 43 municipalities around the country where no party got more than 55%. 23 of those municipalities are vulnerable to either an opposition takeover or to be a coalition. So what this means is that there is a potential, and there's 11 in the Northern Cape, there's 4 in Gauteng, there's a number in KwaZulu-Natal, and some more in the Western Cape. What that means is that there may well be in ANC-run provinces many, many more local government municipalities that fall either to an opposition party or to an opposition coalition. What this means is that it will protect and firewall those municipalities from hostile activity, as we've seen the terrible and vile behavior of MEC Maile, who frankly, if David Makuro was serious about governance and local government in the Gauteng province, should seriously consider sacking while he's busy with his health MEC, because he has really sullied it. It will prevent people like MEC Maile in other provinces from being able to undermine the democratic will of people. We agree that we are a democracy, we're a constitutional democracy, and we respect the outcomes of the ballot box. What you cannot do is use another sphere of government as a weapon against another independent sphere of government and try and usurp power through the back door that you weren't able to obtain through the ballot box. So this is a very significant precedent that we will be able to use going forward across the country when you have predatory provincial administrations who abuse their constitutional power, who don't act in the best interests of local government, but act in the best interest of their political party, as MEC Maile has done, and will prevent those municipalities from being undermined by provincial administrations that are run by another party different to the one in which a local government a council has been elected by the voters of that particular province or municipality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. The last question will go to Nogukanya, after which we'll respond, and then I'll ask you, John, to wrap up the media conference. But before I give over to Nogukanya, just to recognize the comment made by Arno in the chat room, who paid tribute to a particular councillor, and she is getting the privilege of being named. Her name is Cindy Bilson, but the sentiments expressed by Arno to his own ward councillor, I'm sure would be mirrored by scores, hundreds, possibly even thousands of residents who could say the same thing about their DA councillors who laboured in similar ways that Cindy Bilson did. So thank you very much, Arno, for bringing that to our attention. Nogukanya?
Thanks, Mike. Just 3 questions. The first one is, you mentioned earlier, if I'm not mistaken, that costs were awarded to the DA. Do we know by any chance just how much that is, or is that still to be determined at a later stage? The second one is, in terms of the election of a new mayor, does the DA still have plans, if ever the DA did have plans, to enter into a coalition? I know there were talks a month or so ago about a coalition with the IFP. Does that still stand? And then the last one would be, again, I think last month, the IEC had halted elections or by-elections into the metro pending the resolution of the matter with the council. So does this mean, now that this matter is resolved, that that decision by the IEC, is automatically falls away, or is there now a process that the Tshwane Council has to go into before by-elections can then continue again in the metro?
Yeah, I will answer these questions. Firstly, you know, the numerical composition of the city of Tshwane requires any government that comes together, it must be a coalition government, because no party has an outright majority of seats. The DA has the most, but no party actually in of its own number has 50% plus one. So there will be some form of coalition. It's unable to predict at this point in time. Conversations are only starting in terms of the actual makeup of that coalition. It may, you know, I mean, let's be quite frank here. There's nothing that stops the ANC and the EFF ganging together and forming their own coalition. They would have the numbers to do it. But the fact is that the determination of the DA is to go in, seek out coalition partners, and to resume government in the city of Tshwane. That's our intention, and that's going to be our conversation going forward. You raised the issue of the Inkatha Freedom Party. They're not at issue in this particular municipality because they have no seats whatsoever in this particular municipality. So there is nothing for the IFP in the city of Tshwane. So I don't see any conversation specifically with the IFP. It's not to say that one can't talk to them about other matters, but as far as having some kind of say in the running of city of Tshwane, it's just, there's no opportunity for the IFP. The IEC were going to act in terms of the dissolution decision. What has happened was that the dissolution decision was overturned and actually found to be illegal by the North Gauteng High Court. Obviously that decision is being contested in the Constitutional Court, but in the absence of any other judgment, and in with the situation where the Supreme Court of Appeal has upheld the decision by the North Gauteng High Court to make that judgment immediately effective, there is no dissolution. There is no re-election of the city of Tshwane, because that was only required as a result of a dissolving of the council, which is no longer going to take place here. What does happen, though, is that there are vacancies. There are people that have resigned, and I don't know specifically the situation with the various councillors in the city of Tshwane. I think one or two, unfortunately, passed away. Those vacancies have to be filled. And it's in those vacancies, and I think there are about 5 such seats. There will have to be by-elections, and they are likely now to only happen in December. But the IEC has to put those now on the schedule. And I would say the next practical opportunity for that is in December. Nogukanya, does that answer your questions?
It does, Mike. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues. It's been a great privilege. It's now my privilege to hand over to John Steenhuisen, the leader of the DA, to wrap up this media conference. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Mike and Randall and Mpho, and thank you very much to the members of the media. I think that the turmoil that the city of Tshwane has been through has gone on far too long. This war of attrition waged by the provincial government against the democratic outcomes of an electoral process that elected the DA as the largest party needs to come to an end. The people of Tshwane need a government that is able to get out there every single day to make a difference in their lives. The longer these political games continue, the more the people on the ground are going to suffer. It is their cause that is our concern. It is their cause that we want to be able to get into government to ensure that we can continue to fight for. And we would urge all parties in Tshwane to put their party differences aside, to put their petty partisan politics aside, and to come together to ensure that we can elect a government there that is able to start delivering to the people of Tshwane. It's time for this game to end. It's time for us to get serious about government, and it's time to put the people of Tshwane first. And that's certainly the commitment that my party and our leadership team in the province and our leadership team headed by Randall Williams will be doing in Tshwane. I have full confidence that Randall Williams will make an excellent mayor of the city of Tshwane. I think that he is just the remedy for and is able to bring the stability, the gravitas, and the expertise that Randall Williams has been able to show over a long period of time to lead a team there that will put the interests of Tshwane first. And so I'm urging residents as well in Tshwane to take hands with the DA and to back us in this fight to ensure that you have a government that puts you first and that you have a mayor in Randall Williams that always fights for you. Thanks very much.